All right, good morning, everybody. We are going to get started. I just want to thank you all for taking the time this morning to join us. My name is Chris Ross. I am the Regional Sales Manager with Continental Resources. I'm joined by Chris DeHouse from SilverPeak Systems. Again, excited to have you join us today. Our conversation is going to be revolved around digital transformation, the benefits of a self-driving WAN, and SD-WAN within the enterprise. So just quick introductions, followed by I'm going to go into what we see here at ConRes in terms of digital transformation and give a brief overview of who we are. And then Chris is going to jump right into their enterprise SD-WAN solution, followed by a Q&A. Before I forget, for those that did join, in lieu of the upcoming holidays, we are offering a free pie for those in attendance. So you'll be hearing from one of our colleagues here after the webinar to get the delivery address, and we're going to get that order placed for you right away. So we appreciate you joining. So for those that aren't familiar with Continental Resources, we're an IT solutions provider. Our company has been in business for over 55 years, helping our customers achieve their business goals through the use of various technologies. We are women-owned, privately held, which gives us a lot of flexibility to work with our customers, both from a financial perspective. And being in business so long, we are highly respected in the industry, both from our customers that have been with us for a long time and our strategic vendor partnerships such as SilverPeak. We've also been expanding globally, with our customers expanding globally as well. So we have offices all throughout the globe to support any needs you may have globally. Our key areas of focus are in 4 pillars. Those pillars are data center, cloud, security, and digital infrastructure. Our company here has subject matter experts in each of those 4 pillars to help our customers achieve their business goals through the use of those technologies. And we help design, procure, implement, and support the various technologies within each of those stacks. And we do that with our services from an engineering perspective, as well as a managed service offering that we have for 24/7 support. Below is just a snapshot of some of our partnerships. Really excited to be joined again by SilverPeak today. We're going to focus on their market-leading SD-WAN solution. So in terms of digital transformation, really what we're seeing here at ConRes and our customer base of over 2,000 customers is that the way we work has changed, right? Everything from the types of devices we're using to the Internet of Things and all of these wearable devices, campus rollouts, increased use of mobile devices and remote users is really changing the way we have to look at the wide area network. Couple that with the increased usage of cloud, things like Office 365, Amazon, and Azure, we really need to rethink the way we are addressing the WAN. Most people think of the cloud as a single entity, but in reality, as you probably all know, it's multiple types of clouds, right? Everything from infrastructure as a service to software as a service like O365, and even your own private cloud and data centers, right? And customers are struggling in how to support these multiple cloud architectures and reduce the complexity within the WAN. And because of the increased growth of the campus, the branch environment, and this drive towards the cloud-based applications, the Internet has become business critical, as you all know. And with that criticality has come things like infrastructure sprawl, the need to automate due to all this growth, and as well as high costs, right? Most customers are leveraging things like MPLS to ensure quality of service over the WAN because Internet is so important. And with SD-WAN and offerings like SilverPeak, which we'll talk about more in a minute, we're able to offer that enterprise-class reliability on commodity broadband links. And really what we're saying is this new cloud edge, right? How do I efficiently connect my end-user base to the data that they need wherever it resides, whether that's the data center, private cloud, software as a service, or infrastructure as a service? And it's highlighting the need to improve in 3 key areas, right? How do I enhance security of these connections? How do I have flexible networking? And how do I ensure that I'm able to connect to all the various clouds that I'm using? Right? And always the goal here is to reduce risk, ensure that you get a consistent user experience, and make sure we're reducing the complexity in an increasing complex world as it relates to WAN. So we're saying everything needs to become software defined in order to reduce the complexity of the WAN, infrastructure sprawl, the lack of automation, and to help control costs. And we're really excited to be partnered here with SilverPeak. If you're not aware, they were just named a Magic Quadrant leader. They've been in the business for 10 plus years, and one of the reasons we lead with them as a market-leading solution for enterprise-class SD-WAN is because not only for their longevity, but also because they provide WAN optimization to ensure the reliability and performance of the internet with their solution. So I'm now going to pass this over to Chris the House from SilverPeak.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it, and appreciate the partnership between the two organizations. So we have two Chris's on the call, as we often do. My name is Chris the House. Manage the engineering team for the East, predominantly the large accounts in the East. And I'm going to take a quick 10-minute tour, maybe even less, of the company and then the product, and then we'll do a quick, I would say, 10-minute demonstration, if that, and then we can have a brief Q&A if there are some questions that are tying in after that, and we'll close it out. If there's any questions during, you can IM them through, and I will try and pick them up on my second screen. I'll try and keep an eye on that. And off we go. So who is SilverPeak? SilverPeak is a software-defined WAN company. We have a history and a legacy function in WAN optimization. We've been around for quite some time. We're backed by a number of very large investment funds. We're still a private company. And as you can see below, we're currently looking at about 1,000 customers on the SD-WAN platform, which I think is a very important validation of the solution. And, we're constantly growing, and it's a good place to both work, but also to understand that, we're trying to really be cutting edge on the technology side, and from an engineering perspective, we always enjoy that fact. So I do think that this is a relevant thing to bring up. I'll only spend a moment. Gartner, which is a leader in the, as Chris noted before, a leader in the space in terms of ranking and understanding the caliber of a solution and the technology. Gartner was putting us in the top right quadrant along with some very large players, and you can read the general gist of what they go to on the screen, but this is, as I said before, the history of the company has allowed us to make a very strong play in the WAN edge space, of which SD-WAN is part of. And this is available online. You can search it, you can reach out to myself or Content Resource and just basically ask them for a link to download the full report, which is worth a read. So how is this software-defined WAN, and what is it, and how is it the WAN edge basically today? What's been the history and what's been the trajectory? And this is good historically to understand where organizations are going technically, and from a Gen 2 or Gen 3 branch connectivity phase. I mean, obviously, as Chris noted, the cloud is a big part of it, and the connectivity is a critical component. But there's more than just connecting. There's, well, if I'm going to be saving money, and if I'm going to be driving a solution and a redesign at any particular site, especially for branches, is there more I can achieve? And originally, as you can see, at the launch of the product, it was about, well, I can augment my current connectivity, and I can simplify, and I can automate, and I can drive some cost savings out of those activities. As the solution progressed and as time progressed, it became, well, not only do I want to augment, but maybe I want to eliminate, and maybe I want to consolidate. Again, driving cost savings at a per-site basis by aggregating functionality. And today and going forward, you can see, as evident on the screen, that it's just a continuous, how many more things can I aggregate, simplify, and manage in one shot, so to speak. And that's where we sit today. It's not just about changing or augmenting connectivity or even eliminating. It's not just about simplification of how I might roll out a network edge or a branch. It's also about how much can I drive in simplicity into the cloud? How much can I drive in simplicity from a security standpoint? All of these things belie an idea of cost savings, but also an idea of if you can't manage it, you open yourself up to a certain amount of risk. and that risk could be a security component, i.e., if I don't understand all my firewalls and rules and they're not readily readable and they're all managed individually, that becomes a problem. So service training becomes important. That simplicity and that automation can also just simplify the IT operational structure at your organization, which allows them to focus on critical needs as opposed to putting out fires and being reactive. A simplification in other places allows them to become proactive on places the companies and organizations and enterprises are going towards. And that allows more revenue, more growth, and things that any organization would love to have. So this is I wanted to get into a little bit about what the solution looks like, just from a very high level, and before I go into the demonstration. So this is just trying to touch on this quickly. I mean, this is what we're looking at. And originally a traditional branch office, this is a multi-tier component. You'll have switches, you'll have potentially software-defined LAN, you might have some optimization, some firewalls, some routers, and you'll have multiple types of connectivity. In this new thin edge, this thin branch, application-centric, you're really trying to get to the point where it's one or two boxes and very simple connectivity. And that's what we're going towards here. And this is part of the demonstration. I'll kind of walk through that. But you can, even just by looking at the images on the screen, it'll get you the idea that, there's a overarching need to have a simply managed, simply controlled, and automated environment at your branches, and this is a way to go about it, and the way we look at it. It becomes extremely cost-effective and extremely easy to understand, both at an engineering level and actually at a C level when you start talking to the executives about why this makes sense. So getting towards the cloud, which and the way that we're going to look at organizations and data traversing, and as Chris was saying from his side, that the cloud is becoming a connectivity point. It's becoming no different than our data centers. And I was focused in the beginning of this little conversation about the branch connectivity, but where are those branches connecting to? Well, we were talking about broadband, maybe MPLS, and aggregating features and functions of the branch. Those branches are now connecting to more than just a data center. Historically, we always had them connect to a data center. The cloud, and particularly the public cloud, is becoming more and more prevalent, and it's becoming a critical need for every organization. So not only do I need my simplification to apply to the organization's branches, but it also needs to effectively apply to the data centers. And as clouds are adopted, particularly public ones, it needs to then naturally follow on. They need to be no more than another point in the pool, so to speak, of connectivity. And SilverPeak really focuses on making that as simple and easy as possible. When you want to roll out a new site with a new type of application structure potentially, and tie it into a, let's say, data center concept that is spread about using a multi-cloud approach, including your legacy data centers, all of that has to be as seamless and easy as possible from a connectivity standpoint. It's the last thing that you want to spend time engineering and architecting. You want to think about how to get value out of your cloud and your public cloud infrastructure. And the last component is the connection to that infrastructure. And it actually turns out to be extremely hard unless you have a solution that's designed to sit on top of whatever connectivity you have and make it very easy. And we look at it from that perspective. For instance, on the screen, I have PCI traffic. Maybe hypothetically that's supposed to go to AWS, and it's supposed to be treated a certain way when it goes to AWS with quality of service and maybe bonding links. And that needs to be just simply and templatized and put out into the field, which might be different than your legacy data applications that might be going to your original data centers, which might be different than your enterprise apps that could be interactive in some sense. Think about email or Skype for Business, things like that. So all of these things have to be addressed, and not just at the remote locations where they're being hosted, but also in the way they're connected. And we really spend a lot of time, and I'll touch on it briefly in the demo, making this as easy and seamless as possible. In that process is, and I'll only spend a moment on this, in that process is also making it as resilient as possible. So in this example, I showed you an idea of how to think about the connection and the connectivity. But what we do with that connectivity, and it's critical to the way that SilverPeak operates, is making that connectivity resilient. It's no good to look at a cost-saving mechanism, as Chris was pointing earlier, that's going to ride over local internet connections to save money if those connections can't be used efficiently and effectively for the applications that traverse them. And the simple way of looking at it is that SilverPeak is here to make those connections resilient and strong. And we have a lot of technology historically from the application optimization space that ensures that you get a highly resilient and highly reliable connection regardless of the quality underneath it. So you can give me potentially 2 internet links, which will drive the most cost savings to your organization. And I will do quite a lot of things to make sure that those connections run and can be sufficient to replace a high-cost MPLS connection, thereby not only saving you, the organization, the dollars from a connectivity standpoint, but also ensuring the same level of reliability, basically getting it for a lower cost but same quality. And finally, and this is really just the way you should think about it as your traffic traverses, in any next generation branch, in any cloud connectivity design, as I pointed out before, you have traffic traversing various points in the organization. There's also this idea that, well, I also have SaaS applications that I have to address, or multiple security tiers that I have to address. All of that, again, needs to be simply and centrally automated and controlled. If you drive too much complexity into your organization while you're trying to do things, just as I said with the connectivity, you're basically you're trading. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm saving money by aggregating these functions, but I'm adding a lot of complexity by trying to manage my environment in a more traditional way. So particularly security, which I think is the one main thing that we all can agree is number one on the top of most organizations' lists. Being able to control that traffic in a way that as I'm adopting new SaaS apps, as I'm adopting new end-user experiences in terms of maybe guest Wi-Fi or things like that, I'm able to best segment and control my traffic. And again, it has to be simple, has to be easy, and we take a very proactive approach into making that point-click automation across the board. So I'm going to jump into the product momentarily, but I do want to make sure, from the demo side, but I do want to make sure I put a little bit of framework around what we're talking about here. So there is a solution that is the data side that is called an Edge Connect appliance. It can be physical, virtual, or sit in the cloud. There's an orchestrator, which is a central manager. That's what I'll be spending the time in during the brief demo. And then there is Boost, which is WAN optimization. It's a legacy a la carte license that can be applied at an application level, at a site level, at an end user level if you want, and it's here to ensure that if the performance is necessary for that particular application, it's still made available to you. So I'm just going to step out of this screen for a second here and switch over to our brief demonstration. So in interest of time, I like to keep these very succinct. As I said, we have a data plane component and we have an orchestration component. Those are the two things. We're sitting inside the orchestration component. This is running in the cloud that we have that allows us to do, basically sandbox demos. And the orchestrator is here to make everything centralized, everything controlled from one point, and get an organization into a situation where they don't have to use a myriad of tools to effectively manage not only the network connectivity, but triage issues with that connectivity when there's a problem. And actually, as network engineers might say, prove it's not the network. It's meant to do all of those things, not just day one rollout, but day two operational moves, add changes. All of that stuff should be easily managed from one point, and that is our orchestrator. This is a sandbox orchestrator, so not a lot of data going through here. For a real heavy use orchestrator, this is one that's running 68 nodes. It's a real-time environment. It's heavily used by our organization. And you can get a gauge of just how much data from a day two perspective is available here. both in terms of, the health of individual sites, to the appliance counts, to the overlays and bandwidth use and top talkers and all those wonderful things. But to keep it nice and simple and clean as opposed to going into a very heavily used environment, we'll go take a look at a brief one here. And all I'm going to do in this process is walk you through what amounts to the idea of what a software-defined WAN should do from an overlay perspective. So to go back to our idea here, let's spend some time and just talk about how I build this out. How do I virtualize the WAN? How easy should this be? And we'll spend just a quick 2 or 3 minutes trying to codify and build out this in our environment here, our demo environment. So orchestrator, centrally managed, centrally controlled. And if you go and look, there's a lot of features and functions that I can dig into, but what we really want to understand is, what are these overlays? Let's take a look at the overlays here. So an overlay, as you saw before, we dragged text this, it could be something like PCI or data store or enterprise applications. And it can have a transport and mechanisms that will control access, quality of service, bonding, etc. So let's see how we build that here. And that'll be the way that we're going to talk through the lens. The first thing, I have an overlay. Perfect. I have an overlay that's called real-time. Obviously, it would match real-time traffic, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. The overlay for real-time is allowed to have a mesh connectivity. It's going to leverage both internet and MPLS as its primary links, and maybe it will fall back to LTE as a tertiary link should both of these be unavailable. Real-time traffic is going to take advantage of a high availability, which means it's going to choose the best quality path, and it's going to have a 0-second failover. It's also going to allow internet traffic to break out locally, as opposed to backhauling via the overlay. So if for some reason it's unable to break out locally easy, it will backhaul over the overlay. It's going to choose a path, let's say, to break out locally with via internet. And if internet's not available, then I'm going to allow it to, let's say, back up over the MPLS, which in this case would force it to back out over the overlay. I'm going to shape it. I'm going to do some DSCP marking, and I'm going to WAN on it. That is the amount of config that it takes to construct and build this function right here. So you can say a real-time might be equivalent to one of these. So let's say data stores, we could just say, this would be my real-time. And this is the advantage to being able to do or work with this SD-WAN feature set, is that you're not just looking at how I approach the connectivity day one, but it's how do I then add additional sites? How do I bring them in? How much effort is there to it? It's nothing more than flipping on the box, applying the overlay, and letting the overlay policy ride it. So for every new site, for example, that I add to this environment, I don't have to sit here and reconfigure the overlay functionality. I don't have to sit down and understand all the nuances. I simply say that, let's say for the New York site is going to have a real-time overlay. It might not have all of them. It might only have, 3, 4. In this case, I have New York is going to have real-time, a boost, a financial data, SaaS, and default. But why don't I say, well, you know what, there is no really SaaS component. I can just simply remove it, take the SaaS overlay out, and now I'm only looking at traffic from a real-time boost financial data perspective and default. And I don't have to sit there and reconfigure New York. I don't have to have somebody go in and touch the box directly. I don't have to put my organization in a situation where the enormous amount of effort needed to not only bring on a box, but then change it or augment it is causing a lot of work on the move, add, change side. It's just a nice, simple, streamlined idea. If we weren't able to do this, it wouldn't really necessarily be a market that's moving forward or taking off, so to speak, in that case of SD-WAN. So that's all I want to touch on. There is a zero-touch component to it. All of this stuff should be simple, easy to put in. But as we walk through, and as Chris said, it's about making things easy, simple, secure, and applying these overlays and bringing a solution together that allows this type of functionality with ease and simplicity is key to the way that organizations are going forward, both from their cloud connectivity and from their clouds themselves and the wide area connections that tie them together. So I want to quickly run through that simple example of how the product will work and how the product will enable an organization not only to adopt the cloud more easily, but to rethink the way their branches are run from a simple, optimized, and secure environment. So that ties up our, that ends up our presentation time. We do like to keep it nice and clean and simple. So I want to make sure that I left a little bit of time for questions. I'm going to take a look here on the question page and ask a few if there are any, which there are some. So thank you. Okay, so Chris, if you wouldn't mind just jumping in. There was a question about managing the solution from a managed service standpoint, and what ConRes would be able to do in that space. Could you spend maybe just a minute or two and speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so we do see that a lot as organizations look to deploy SD-WAN. Even though it's simple, that sometimes they want help to manage that, as well as some of the providers offering it as a managed service. But here at ConRes, being a managed solutions services provider, we actually could offer SD-WAN as a service, managing SilverPeak across multiple branches or campuses, and really make it seamless for you to where, one call 24/7, you can make a change and know that your network is being monitored both from a security, network, and availability perspective at all times through our 24/7 NOC in Bedford, Massachusetts. We have all U.S.-based technicians there that are level 1, 2, and 3 to ensure that you get the proper support you need to maintain uptime across your network. So we certainly offer that, and if anyone wants to speak about it in more detail, we can talk offline.
Okay, great, thanks. I see two more. That was about it. So one was for SilverPeak around security. I didn't follow the security component and how we're doing the tunneling. Is that split tunneling? Okay. Yes, I did gloss over that. I apologize. The way to think about the solution is it's directing traffic over these overlays to allow site-to-site, site-to-cloud, site-to-data center connectivity. And that's one component. That's a critical component for the simplicity side and for the automation side. And then what I glossed over was, well, how do I then work with traffic when it's meant to go directly to the internet? And I think the most logical example we'll use would be Office 365. So in that case, the box has to make a decision about how I'm going to match traffic. And it looks at it at application level. Are you an application that I recognize? Do you have a signature or a URL or a destination that clearly should be going out to the internet for one reason or another? And then the appliance is able to make a decision. Well, should that go to the cloud directly? Should that go back and service chain to a firewall? Or should that go directly to the internet? And in the case of Office 365, which is a really good example, we trust Office 365 for the most part. We can split that out locally. So the simplicity of the solution in that particular case and the security around it is focused on not just how do I control the inter-site, inter-branch, and cloud connectivity, but also how do I make a very simple automated decision to direct traffic that I trust to the internet locally, so I'm not backhauling it and taking, let's say, a latency hit as the traffic traverses a backhaul to a proxy and then breaks up locally. So yes, it allows for split tunneling. It can be very application-centric. It actually can identify the application on the first packet, which turns out to be very critical, but that takes a little bit more time to explain, and it doesn't really fit the tune of the webinar speed that we have. So you can always reach us offline and ask questions, and obviously you can reach out to me directly, and or Chris. We can always set up a meeting and go through it. There was one more question here for content or resources. They wanted to understand what you do in terms of cost optimization. So this steps away from SD-WAN a little bit. Chris, could you speak a little bit on your cloud, what you're able to offer in the cloud space around cost optimization?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, great question. As customers look to move to
I lost Chris.
a handle of the cost and the spend within the cloud, And secondarily, how do I ensure that I'm following best practices as I deploy my workloads and applications within the cloud, both from a security perspective and a best practices perspective. And here at ConRes, we actually offer a tool via our managed services team that enables cost optimization, a seamless dashboard for you to view your entire infrastructure running on either AWS or Azure, with details on how we can optimize the cost at any given moment. We could automate the changes of that to optimize the costs, as well as highlight best practices that you may or may not be following to ensure things like compliance, which doesn't go away when you move to the cloud, right? So we actually have a tool via our managed service to make for an offering there for anyone that's interested. So feel free to message me or reach out to me afterwards if you have more interest.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And yeah, that's a really valuable, it's a valuable feature set. You know, we talk a lot about moving things to the cloud and cost savings across the network connectivity that's going there, but if you're not being very cognizant about your cost of the cloud itself, it can quickly get away with you. And managing it is actually quite a hard problem to solve. It's good that you guys have it. Well, great. That was the only three I saw come through. If you have any other questions, you can reach us directly. We'll make this available via a replayable URL, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. And if you're in the Northeast, I hope you avoid the snow. Thanks. Have a good day.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and I appreciate the time. Hopefully you can see the value we could bring both from ConRes and SilverPeak to simplify your WAN. And, again, we'll be in touch to make sure that we get the delivery address for the pies, and we look forward to meeting with you again in the near future to discuss any WAN needs you may have and how we can help you. So thanks, everyone, for joining. This concludes our webinar. Have a great day, everyone, and a happy holiday.